Hi, it's Dana Horochowski. It's November the 11th, 2009. That's 11-11-11 today. One of those dragon phallus numbers that you see the Illuminati always flash at you. I'm going to be going through Terra Papers 1, just my notes, and hopefully I do a good job without freaking everybody out. And then I'll go into Terra Papers 2. It's just a matter of when I have time to get this done without any interruptions. So, just going to give you a brief. Remember, Terra Papers 2 and 1 were taken from Star Elder, who crashed his UFO. The natives took him and nursed him back to health and told them the story about the history of man and Earth without any influence from the Zionists or anything else. This is done by the children of the Feathered Tribe. So this is a story told by Robert Morningsky's grandfathers, and so I'm just going to kind of give you a brief, and hopefully it's as good as I can possibly do it for my first time run. And okay, so remember, the man has his options. Ea, who's in the Pleiades, who is a creator, geneticist, scientist who created all the Earth creations. He's an Anunnaki. His brother is Enlil. Father is Anu. Their star system, which is Sirius Orion star system, which is the 9th passageway into this galaxy, is basically, they control this whole place they call Eridanus, which is Earth is Eridu. So this is they are the gods of mythology that it kind of goes into, but mythology's been changed. So he has the Pleiades. He used his own blood to form man. So that means that man is in the royal house of Anu. We have the Anunnaki blood in our veins because he put his own DNA in order to tick his brother Enlil off, because Enlil, who's the Yahweh of the Bible, enslaved the first primitive man hybrid to work, to alleviate the work for the Anunnaki, because remember, they were mining gold for the Snake Queens in Orion. They could have blown up their atmosphere, according to Zachariah Sitchin or whatever, but this place and other planets have a lot of precious metals that they like to take. So Ea decided to create from the primitive beast. He added his own DNA, and later on he added the DNA of the angels, which was the birds, the feather DNA, to keep us free and independent, so that we would be able to rule ourselves and not be enslaved by these race of gods. He too knew what it wasn't like to be free. He worked very hard, and he the Mormons have a bit of this story. He worked very hard, and it was always Enlil due to bloodline, I guess, because you have to mix the bloodline, the Syrian Orion bloodline, to have children that take over these royal bloodlines in order to rule. It was always Enlil that would be Lord of the Word or command for planet Earth, and Ea was doing all the work. So in the end, he took off to the Pleiades with some of his Adamus creation, which is a little further up than the Adapus ones. The Adapus ones were the first primitive man who got to stay in the garden because they followed the sex rules of Enlil, saying that you can only do it when I tell you to and what to do. And so they were the obedient slaves. They were called the Adapus, and then the Adamus was the ones with the little more bird DNA, which is our forebrain. That's made up of the owl DNA. So that is the Adamus race, which a lot of it took off to the Pleiades. Alex Collier gets into this a bit, so I'm going to mix a lot of stuff that I've been looking at and blend it into the Terra Papers, but hopefully I'll get through this without any interruptions, because I only have 10-minute segments, so I don't want to lose any of you. Okay, so Ea is formed man using his own DNA. He was supposed to use the Anunnaki DNA, like Enlil said, but he didn't listen to him. So we, as primates, humanity, remember our soul comes from the central sun, so this is just our genetic spacesuit. We can claim the throne of Eridu, which is Earth. And man is the son of a god. Remember, the Sirius is the dog star, god and dog reverse. That's where you get that. So the son of God, the one who created us, is Ea Anki. Enlil didn't create us. Enlil is Yahweh. He's the one who wiped us out in the flood. The Adamus Adapus race, because he just didn't care. He wanted us to be slaves, and we were expendable. Anyway, the ET and UFOs that you're seeing now, a lot of talk about it. He says they're self-serving. If you serve them well, then man will be rewarded. And you have to be your own God, you're a master of your own destiny. And if you can remember the truth and pursue your passion, your gift of the feather, then that is your key to taking Earth as your Eden. So I just, I worry about the religious wars that are coming up with the alien wars, because those are basically factions. Remember, the Ramen, the Romans, are the ones that worship the sun god. They were not nice to Christians. That's why you see the Christian and the Catholics fighting, because one is the Raman faction, and the Christian one was the old Yesu, Mary Magdalene, the Holy Grail bloodline that got wiped out by the Romans because they needed to put the Christian faith into a political movement so they could have power over the world. They managed to conquer all the other areas so that they can rule and tax everybody. They couldn't get the Christians, the bloodline of Yesu, which is the Nazarenes, and the Avalon Queens and the Fisher Kings. I went into that in last week's stuff. But so there is a faction of Christianity that's a little bit right, a little bit wrong. And remember, I'm going to pick this up, Constantine. Remember, you have Paul, who was a disciple of Yesu, but wasn't a very good one. He kind of sided with Rome, and later he kind of changed Yesu's teachings. And then don't forget, this is the other half of the Gospels that are missing, that Constantine took out and threw out because he decided that he was the true Messiah, the Son of God, the Sun God, which is a faction of Ra, which you'll see coming in with Ra ISIS now, that the alien agenda is pushing. So be careful. They don't talk about Nasara, a lot of them. None of them have. I'm talking about Project Camelot, those kind of people. I haven't heard about it too much on Rents or Ike or anything else. So, I mean, these guys have taught me a lot, but in the end, if you're going to pull out the arsenic and poison the whole pot, then we're going to have some problem with deception. But remember, the Gnostic Bible is the text that were taken out. Nag Hammadi Scripture has them. Adam and Eve, all that stuff, all that teaching's been taken out. So I will get into Terra Papers too, with how Yesu was influenced by the Iya faction later, but I need to go into the Anunnaki bloodlines and how it came that Anu rules and Iya and Enlil become rulers of this part of the galaxy, which is Earth. Okay, so remember Eridanus, which is the galaxy. It has billions of star beings, and mostly humanoid is the rule. The star race is descended of reptiles. You have insect humanoids and bird humanoids. Remember the cell faction, you start as single-celled, and then you go into an amoeba-looking, and then multi-celled, and then you have a tail, which is amphibian, then it goes into reptilian, then it goes into mammalian. That's the evolution of the embryo. So you're going to kind of see that way evolve. There's two races that monopolize our galaxy. It's the Orion and the Sirians star systems. The Orions were the reptilian, the Aryans. They have the dinosaur ancestors. The Orion, Aryan, they're called the Snake Queens, which rule the Orion race. They like to rule by controlling minds and mind programming instead of wiping people out. They were the strongest and bravest. Also, you had the Canis, which is the dog star, the Sirius star system. And they look like dogs and wolves, and they were fierce warriors. They would devour the flesh of the fallen, and the kings would kill. And that's where the Anu bloodlines came. So they needed to form a truce. The Orion Queens were concerned. They knew that nobody won when everybody got slaughtered in a war. So they also had control of the star lane, the ninth passageway, which was controlled by the Orion Queens, the Aryan Queens. They collected revenues, and they had political affairs with the other star systems. So the queens approached the Canis kings, and they pledged allegiance and control of the outer passageway. They gave them that, and if they didn't obey, then they would have destroyed the Sirius star system itself. So the reptilian queens and the Canis kings came together in allegiance, and I'll see you in